Hello and welcome back to Euro Football Daily for today's top 10. Here we take a look at some great players who were either born in or went on to represent countries not known for producing top talent. Let's get into it. 10. Henrikh Mkhitaryan. It would probably be difficult to argue against Henrikh Mkhitaryan being Armenia's greatest export, football or otherwise. Formerly the southernmost tip of the USSR, the country has been ravaged by war, leading to less than a third of Armenians across the world actually residing in their home nation. As a result, football has been impacted. The National League has just 10 teams, and most casual football fans would struggle to name any other Armenian player. After trials with Sao Paulo in Brazil as a 13-year-old, Mkhitaryan made his debut for Pierre-Emerick at 17 in 2006, scoring 30 goals in 70 matches before moving to Donetsk 3 years later. Then, after a remarkable season in 2012-13, in which he netted 25 times in 29 matches for Shakhtar, he made a €25 million transfer to Borussia Dortmund, where he quickly became one of Europe's most coveted midfielders. A dream move to Man United followed in 2016, and then that infamous swap deal with Alexis Sanchez saw him go on to Arsenal. Now on loan at Roma, his stock may have fallen somewhat, but he's still Armenia's favourite son. Mickey is his nation's top goalscorer and has won Player of the Year award in 9 of the last 11 seasons. 9. Shaun Goater. Before we move on to our next section, just a quick reminder to subscribe to Euro Football Daily and hit that notification bell to never miss one of our top 10s. Despite a total population of around 45 million people, the Caribbean aren't known for producing footballing greats, and no nation from the region has qualified for the World Cup since Trinidad and Tobago in 2006. Shaun Goater is one though that did make his name as a Premier League player, and he hailed from the small island of Bermuda. Later making his name with Manchester City, Goater actually began his English football career with Man United as an 18-year-old in 1988, after being spotted whilst on tour with his school the previous year. After spells with Rotherham and Bristol City, Goater got his move to Man City in 1998, and over the next 5 years would score 103 goals in 212 matches at Maine Road. Representing his nation in the best league of the world led to Goater being awarded the Freedom of Bermuda, and the 21st of June declared as Shaun Goater Day on the island. He would go on to win League One with Southend before heading home to play in the Bermudan Premier Division in 2007. With 32 goals in 36 games for the national team, Goater is comfortably the best footballer to come out of Bermuda and has cemented his place as a Caribbean football icon. 8. Massimo Bonini. Massimo Bonini has quite the CV. The midfielder made his way up the Italian leagues before signing for Juventus in 1981 as a 22-year-old, going on to make almost 300 appearances for the Old Lady. He won 3 Serie A titles, a Coppa Italia, a Cup Winners' Cup and the 1985 European Cup. Almost standard for a top Italian player, sure, but that's the thing. Bonini didn't play for one of the best teams in the world, but actually one of the worst. He represented San Marino, a nation with a population of around 30,000, having been born and raised in the Italian enclave. Bonini did feature for Italy's under-21 team in the early 1980s, but refusal to give up his San Marinese citizenship meant he had to wait until 1990 to make his debut, when his homeland was finally admitted to UEFA. Bonini gained 19 caps, but San Marino lost every one, something they also did when he took over the managerial role, scoring none and conceding 42 in his 8 matches on the sideline. In fact, San Marino have lost 159 of their 164 games, with just one victory, a 1-0 win against Liechtenstein in 2004. And to think this nation produced a European Cup winner. 7. Alphonso Davies. 18 months ago you would have been forgiven for never having heard of Alphonso Davies. Born in a refugee camp in Ghana to Liberian parents who fled a civil war, Davies' family moved to Canada in 2006 when he was 5 years old. This meant he was able to represent either Liberia or Canada on the international stage, both huge underdogs. Ultimately, Davies would choose the latter. Some may argue that, as a result, Alphonso Davies is already the best ever Canadian footballer, despite his tender age of 19. Playing for Vancouver Whitecaps, Davies became the second youngest MLS player in history, after Freddie Adu, debuting at the age of 15 years and 8 months. And when he was just 17, Bayern paid a then MLS record of $22 million to bring Davies across to Europe. At this point, Davies had received the Canadian citizenship that allowed him to be called up for the full national team, making his debut in 2017, scoring twice in that summer's Gold Cup. After racking up 17 caps as a teenager and already having a Bundesliga winners' medal in his pocket, there's surely no doubt that Davies will go on to redefine Canadian football. 6. Gedson Fernandes. Another youngster born in a West African nation but now thriving in one of Europe's major leagues is Gedson Fernandes. Despite spending almost his entire football upbringing in Benfica's academy, joining them when he was 10, Fernandes was actually born almost 3,000 miles away in São Tomé and Príncipe. Just 200,000 people live on this tiny island, which also ranks as Africa's second smallest nation, and Fernandes was one of them for the first 9 years of his life. But thanks to the strong links between São Tomé and Portugal, his family could move to Europe, and explains why the 21-year-old now represents Portugal on the international stage, having featured for every age group since the under-15s. As for São Tomé, they've only played 55 official matches in 44 years since their first game, not playing at all between 2003 and 2011, often falling at the first hurdle in both World Cup and AFCON qualification. With Gedson Fernandes now playing for Spurs in the Premier League and starting to feature in the Portuguese national team, it looks like this small African island will pin their hopes to this prospect. 5. Paulino Alcantara. Quite possibly the greatest Barcelona player you've never heard of, Paulino Alcantara may even lay claim to being one of the Blaugrana's greatest ever footballers, at least until Lionel Messi came along. Alcantara was born in the Philippines to a Spanish father and Filipino mother, and moved to Barcelona as a 3-year-old in 1899, which also happens to be the year the football club was formed. In 1912, Alcantara made his debut for the side in the Catalan Championship at the age of 15 years and 4 months old, scoring a hat-trick in a 9-0 victory. And to this day he remains Barcelona's youngest ever goalscorer in an official match. Those 3 goals were the first of 369 for Barcelona, a record that wouldn't be broken until Messi surpassed it in 2014. And Alcantara also thrived on the international scene. He featured for Catalonia and Spain, but his most notable performance came for the Philippines, when in 1917 he took part in a 15-2 demolition of Japan, scoring twice, a result that unsurprisingly remains their biggest win. In 1927, aged just 31, after winning 5 Copa del Reys and 10 Catalonian championships, Alcantara hung up his boots so he could focus on his day job of being a doctor. 4. George Weah. Maybe if George Weah hadn't become the president of his homeland since retiring, it might have come as a surprise that one of the world's best strikers in the 1990s, and the first ever African Ballon d'Or winner, comes from the small West African nation of Liberia. They have an underwhelming international record, only qualifying for the African Cup of Nations twice, although with Weah leading the line both times they failed to make it past the groups. Not even making it to Europe until he was 22, Weah went on to transcend Liberian football, becoming an icon for the entire continent as he became one of the world's most feared strikers. Prolific spells at Monaco and PSG got him a move to AC Milan, where he would go on to score one of the most iconic goals in history, dribbling the entire length of the pitch. And despite retiring in 2003, Weah put on his boots one last time to feature in a friendly for Liberia in 2018 at the age of 51. He remains their top scorer with just 13 goals, but any hope of seeing his son surpass this quickly evaporated. George Jr. only ever bounced around Europe's lower tiers, whilst Timothy plays for the USA. 3. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. The highest profile current player on this list, we'd expect you to know that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang represents Gabon. Born in France to a former captain of the Gabonese national team and a Spanish mother, the 30-year-old could have turned out for Les Bleus or La Roja, but the first side to call him up were actually the Italy under-19s, whilst he was on the books with AC Milan. And despite making an appearance for France's under-21s, Aubameyang switched to Gabon to follow in his father's footsteps. Squashed between Cameroon and the Congo on Africa's west coast, Gabon are actually slightly larger than the UK in size, but have a population of just over 2 million, and are hardly known for their footballing prowess. They've never qualified for the World Cup, and have only reached the knockout stages of the African Cup of Nations twice since first entering in 1972. Since his debut for Les Panthères in 2009, Aubameyang has made over 60 appearances and with 25 goals is their all-time top scorer, and just like his father has become the captain of his country. With age against him though, he will hope that he can lead Gabon to their first ever World Cup in 2 years' time. 2. Christian Karembeu. One of the most recognisable members of France's 1998 World Cup and Euro 2000 winning squads, it may come as a surprise to learn that Christian Karembeu was actually born over 10,000 miles away in the Pacific Ocean island of New Caledonia. Born in 1970, the combative midfielder didn't even set foot in mainland France until he was 17, having to make an arduous 3-day journey to Europe after spending his youth days with FC Nature in the capital Nouméa. In his career, Karembeu went on to win Ligue 1 with Nantes, alongside Claude Makélélé in midfield, followed by a stint at Sampdoria before a 3-year spell with Real Madrid between 1997 and 2000, winning 2 Champions League trophies. Karembeu saw out his days at Middlesbrough, Olympiacos, Servette in Switzerland and Bastia. But despite earning over 50 caps for Les Bleus, Karembeu always had a difficult relationship with the nation of France. Part of the indigenous New Caledonian people, his great-grandfather was once displayed as a cannibal in a Paris exhibition, and the current Olympiacos advisor has always refused to sing La Marseillaise because of France's colonial past. Despite making his name on the other side of the world, Karembeu has remained conscious of his roots. 1. Clarence Seedorf. We picked Clarence Seedorf here for Suriname, but the reality is that we could have picked a number of players as a representative of this small South American nation. Along with Seedorf, both Edgar Davids and Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank were born in the capital of Paramaribo, before moving to the Netherlands as young children. Other Dutch internationals that could have also represented Suriname include Ruud Gullit, Patrick Kluivert, Virgil van Dijk and Jorginho Wijnaldum. So with such a rich history of world-class footballers, you'd expect Suriname to have something of a reputation in the international game. Well, no. Despite being on the continent of South America, they actually participate in the CONCACAF region, with teams from North and Central America and the Caribbean. Despite weaker competition, Suriname sit 141st in the world rankings, lower than Andorra and on a par with the Solomon Islands. As for Seedorf, his connection with his birthplace is a strong one, being involved in a number of development projects and even funding a stadium in the country that now bears his name. Having played for the likes of Ajax, Real Madrid and both Milan clubs, winning 4 Champions Leagues along the way, Seedorf is the most recognisable player to come out of this small corner of South America. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that rundown of 10 great players from obscure nations, something a little bit different. I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. Did we miss any out? Let us know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Ciao!